Okay, that's I think a very important question, and if you look at the spectrum that we're going to require for 5G, there's not just one particular range of frequencies that need to be considered, but a number. So from the bottom up, there's going to need to be spectrum below 1 gigahertz, which will be important for providing wide area coverage. There's then a range between around 1 and 6 gigahertz, which is going to be very important because it provides really a balance between the capacity and coverage with a reasonable mixture of both of those. And then finally, the spectrum above 6 gigahertz is going to be important in order to provide ultra high capacity, particularly in very dense areas. So if you look and actually compare it with what's being discussed here, then if I go from the top down, you have the spectrum above 6 gigahertz, which due to what happened at the last World Radio Conference, WC15, the decision was taken there to look at only bands above 24 gigahertz and certain bands within a particular range there. And in Europe, you will see at this conference that there's a particular focus on the so-called 26 gigahertz band, which is a range of frequencies which has come to the forefront in Europe and has been identified as one of the pioneer bands for 5G in Europe. There's actually an important decision taking place in the next few weeks at the ECC plenary meeting when there's supposed to be the agreement of a ECC decision for that band. That's a very important thing, and there's a danger in fact that the technical conditions that are associated with the band could actually be somewhat detrimental to the use of that band in Europe. We have some concerns about that, and it's looking like Europe could actually impose conditions which are more restrictive than in other parts of the world, which we believe may affect Europe's ability to compete and to, let's say, lead the 5G race in the millimetre wave frequencies. Moving down the spectrum, in the range between 1 and 6 gigahertz, then again you'll see at this conference that if you look at Europe, then there is a particular focus on the so-called C-band, particularly between 3.4 and 3.8 gigahertz. That is again another pioneer band that's been identified in Europe for 5G, and there's various activities to make that band available. The difficulty there, and it is quite a challenge I believe, is to do that in a way that avoids fragmentation. And what we're seeing actually in the last session at this conference is different situations in different countries, and again there's certainly challenges to really make Europe the leader in 5G, or one of the leaders in 5G. That's really focusing on Europe in particular. If you look at other parts of the world, then there's some similarities but also some differences. So looking at the 1 to 6 gigahertz range, there are other countries in different parts of the world that are also focusing on similar ranges of frequencies, but not exactly the same. For example, some countries are also considering 3.3 to 3.4 gigahertz, and others, particularly in the Far East, are considering frequencies above 4 gigahertz, between 4 and 5 gigahertz. So there are some differences there also. I think it's only the first day of a two-day conference, but I think the level of discussion here is very good. And as my colleague said earlier, it's a very good opportunity to discuss issues in a somewhat less formal setting than something like the ITU, which can be quite confrontational in the way it operates. So I think there's a lot of value in many of the key stakeholders in Europe coming together in this forum and discussing things in a somewhat more relaxed environment. And I think I know Forum Global was running conferences in other regions as well, and I think for similar reasons that has a lot of value. And I think the the regional nature of these conferences is, this is the only one I've been to myself, but I think is quite good because different regions will have their own particular issues and their own particular priorities.